Dr. Navita Panmudi.
Hey guys, it's Navita. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be getting ready for my graduation. It is veterinary commencement day. I asked you guys to ask me any questions you have about vet school, veterinary medicine, or just my journey, and I'm going to be answering those questions today while I get ready. I can only imagine that it's going to be a bit of a lengthy video, so as always I'm going to timestamp the questions down below. So check out the description box if you want to skip around. Otherwise, let's just get right into it. So my very first question is, how many years for this course? This varies depending on where you are. So for example, in America, so I live in the US, you have high school, so up to 12th grade, and then you have to do 4 years of undergraduate. So you need a 4 years bachelor degree before you can apply to something like veterinary school. So you do 4 years of college, and then you apply for vet school, and once you get in, you do 4 years of vet school. So it's about 8 years after 12th grade, 8 years after high school. Someone asked, what is the best semester in vet school? It varies because you spend the first 3 years in didactic learning, so in classes and taking tests and just studying for the most of the part. As far as there being a best semester during my studying portion, there were definitely certain classes that I thought were more interesting and I had more fun learning. For example, first year is all basic courses, so you're doing biochem, anatomy, physiology, immunology, things like that. And so they're very nitty-gritty, and for me, they're easy to memorize, but they're kind of boring to learn. But after you hit second year, third year, you learn courses that are a little bit more clinically relevant, and I think that's where the interest comes in, because that's where you're actually learning the practicing medicine aspect of it. Classes like Med-Surg, which is medicine and surgery, we had Med-Surg 1, 2, and 3. They were hard, but they were actually the most clinically relevant, and I think I had the most fun studying those things. Didactic portion aside, I had the most fun during fourth year when I had rotations and externships, because that was the time that I actually got to practice medicine. I was hands-on learning, I was seeing cases, working alongside doctors, doing surgery, troubleshooting issues. And then not the best semester, but the hardest semester. For PennVet specifically, everyone tells you to be prepared for second year, second semester, and it truly was very hard second year, second semester, and third year, first semester as well. First year, it's definitely harder than college, so you're kind of thrown off guard and you're not really sure what to do with all of that information. But by the end of first year, you learn how to study, you learn how to get everything together. However, second year comes in and second year semester just doubles that information that you were learning first year, and it really pushes you to your end. So I thought second year, second semester, and then third year, first semester were the hardest semesters in the terms of back-to-back exams on a weekly basis. I was studying 12 hours every single day just to make sure that I knew the information, or at least seen the information once before an exam. So how hard are exams in general? That is such a subjective question, but I can answer it from how I felt. I have just, throughout my education, like from middle school, high school, college, have been decent at memorizing information. I find it easy to just kind of swallow everything and then regurgitate out on an exam. There were a lot of exams at Penn that had that style of learning. They just throw information at you, you memorize it, and then you take a test on it. Some vet schools are not like that. Some vet schools are more case-based, so I think you should definitely do your research on what school offers what teaching and learning style, and then what you do best, and follow that path. Every once in a while, every semester, we had 1 or 2 classes that were primarily case-based, and those were definitely more of a struggle for me. That's not to say that they were harder. It was just a learning style that I wasn't used to, so it took me a little bit longer to catch on to that learning style. But that being said, memorization and that kind of test taking gets you the grades, or it got me the good grades. However, it doesn't help the best with memory retention. So I might have done well in vet school as far as getting good grades, but that doesn't mean I remembered everything I took a test on and remember it to this day. So in that sense, I think case-based learning definitely helps you retain the knowledge for longer, or at least have a stronger retention of it. Underlying statement is that it is hard, the tests are hard, and it's not because of the type of information, it's primarily because of the amount of information that makes veterinary school and medical school, I'm sure, very difficult in terms of, are the tests hard? Someone asked, how old are you? I just turned 26 on May 6th. Someone asked, what is your future, veterinary doctor or YouTuber? It's veterinary doctor. It's always going to be a veterinarian. I am going to keep doing YouTube for as long as I can. I think it's always just going to be a hobby. I don't plan on making a career out of YouTube unless I can somehow intertwine it with being a vet. Number one, I spent many years and a lot of money on this education. There's a reason for that. It has been my passion from day one, and there's nothing more that I want to do than to help animals. And especially with matching in New York, I am going to be doing something that's nonprofit, and that is honestly, I want to say, one of my life goals. So I'm very happy to stay as a vet forever, but YouTube has honestly become such a big part of my life, and I hope to continue doing it no matter how hard my other career gets or how time consuming it gets. So I think it's going to be a delicate balance of both, but veterinary medicine will always take priority, hands down. What are the working hours like for a vet? The hours vary depending on what kind of medicine you practice. The catch is that you don't actually stop working before and after you come in for work or whatever. You most times take work back home with you, or you have to stay late to finish up paperwork. You oftentimes have to come in earlier than your actual start time in the morning just to check on inpatients and soap your animals and things like that. It's hard to say that there's a steady number of hours a day because you honestly have to depend it on the pets that you have, the patients that you're treating. So most often I want to say it's anywhere between 10 to 12 hours a day. For example, my upcoming year's hours are said to be 9 to 7, but from everyone I've talked to, you usually have to get there by 7 in the morning to check on your inpatients and kind of get things done before you start seeing appointments or whatever you're doing at 9. And then at 7, you don't just pack up and go home at 7. 7 means you're done working, but then you probably have to go check on your inpatients again. You have to finish up all your paperwork for the day, make any phone calls that you need to. What a lot of people maybe don't keep in mind or forget at times is that you never stop learning. So getting a job and having working hours doesn't mean that you don't still have to study. There are always going to be cases that you're not familiar with or comfortable with, or something new pops up. You have to go back home and spend a few hours either looking up publications or articles just to get a better understanding of how to treat, said case or something like that. What is the tuition? That's public information. You can easily Google what school you're looking into and find out what the tuition is. There is a difference between in-state tuition and out-of-state. For example, if you lived in Pennsylvania, you would get a much cheaper tuition because you are in-state. However, if you lived in a different state and wanted to go to Penn, you're going to pay the out-of-state tuition. That being said, the tuition is going to range anywhere from, I don't remember, they keep increasing it, but it's definitely in the 30-something thousand range. 30,000 a semester. So for the full year, you're looking at between 50 to 60,000, depending on what school you go to, and that's just tuition alone. Housing is a totally separate thing. It's not like college where you get dorms set up for you, so you do have to find personal housing to rent or own or something like that. The qualification one needs to enter vet school. This is actually in one of my other veterinary videos. I will link those in the description box down below, but essentially you can just Google your veterinary school of choice, what you're looking into, and they will tell you exactly what prerequisites you need. You need to have an undergraduate degree. There are certain prerequisite science courses that you need to take, and then you need to take your GRE test. What is the worst thing that you have experienced in the school? This is a touchy subject. For me, it was very hard to be in vet school and be vegan or plant-based, especially the time that we spent on the farm. A lot of the animals that we were treating were part of the food industry, and I just had a lot of trouble knowing that association and not getting distracted emotionally by it. For my school personally, and what I've heard from other vet schools in and around, the number of vegetarian or vegans is still very, very low. So there's definitely discrepancy with how we consider animals as food. So that's something I definitely struggled with. I've had a lot of veterinary students reach out to me who are also vegan and are maybe the one in their whole class or one of the few. They're definitely experiencing the same struggle I had. So if you are like that, DM me on Instagram or send me an email. I would love to talk about it. I mean, the fact that I'm answering it for this question, what's the worst thing you've experienced? It definitely did hinder my veterinary school experience. I care a lot about animals, so it was kind of disturbing to me too. The next question is similar. Did you become vegan after getting into veterinary school? Yes. It's funny, I actually did become vegan early in the year I went to vet school. January of 2015 is when I first became vegan. I had been thinking about it all throughout the fall before. So I was a senior in college and I had spent the whole summer prior applying to vet school. It was on my mind that I wanted to stop eating meat. I definitely was one of those people who always said, I can never stop eating meat. Oh my God, I love cheese. I could never stop eating cheese. But something about the veterinary application process and spending my entire summer working on it, it just put this idea in my head that I cannot possibly go into an entire career and put my life towards working for animals and then also continue to support the industry that not only very inhumanely kills them, but just eating animals. It felt weird, and despite eating animals all my life, it was the application process of applying to vet school and in the end getting accepted into vet school is what made me finally make the decision and like cold turkey become vegan. I'm starting PennVet in August. How should I be preparing for it? First of all, congratulations. You're going to be a fellow VMD. That's very exciting. For preparing, it's scary and you feel like you should be doing stuff this summer, but please don't take your summer off. For anyone who is going to be starting vet school this year, 2019, enjoy your summer. Do everything you can to have fun or just sleep all day. You're gonna need it. There's no reason to prepare by studying or anything like that because that's what you're going to school for. You are going to end up studying starting day one, so why waste even a minute before? As far as preparing for the amount of information you're going to get, I don't think it's really possible. I expected there to be a lot of information, so I thought I was mentally prepared going in, but it was far more than I had even imagined. So I don't think that there's any use in really prepping beforehand. I think you should enjoy your summer and spend it with friends and family. That's it. I think you should be really proud of yourself and you're gonna have a wonderful 4 years. How was your experience and how did you keep going when it was hard? It was hard more than it was ever easy. So I think once you find a way to cope and, have a stress relieving hobby or just spending time with your friends or just taking time for yourself, once you get into the habit of doing that, it actually becomes pretty easy. I spent a lot of time just needing time to myself. So just going back home, relaxing with my dog, binging Netflix for hours. And then other times I was driving distance to home, about an hour and a half. So if things really got hard, I would just come home for the weekend, study at home, have my parents cook for me. That was definitely something that I think I was lucky to have. I didn't do this as often as I maybe should have, but make time for friends. Try to just get out, go out with friends. Don't study, don't think about school. Try to have fun while you can. It's really hard, but try to eat healthy because it's so easy to stress eat, but that builds up on your stress and you just really feel like crap afterwards. Our school had a free gym membership, so it was really nice to sometimes just take a study break, go to the gym for an hour, and then come back, and I was refreshed, revitalized, and could get back into studying. One of the most important things for me was having someone to talk to. So my roommate, especially these past 2 years, was someone I told everything to, every single frustration or just accomplishment even. I verbalized it and it helped me really get through a lot of stuff. I also told my parents pretty much everything and that helped too. So just having a support system, someone to talk to. I even wrote in a journal. All of that stuff helps. What's something about vet school that you wish you knew right now? I feel like there's a few things that I would say I wish I knew before. However, nothing really changes the fact that I would do it all over again if someone made me. I wish I knew that memorizing loads and loads and loads of information was not going to help me with actually retaining that knowledge to use on a patient in a case. I would have definitely studied differently if I had known that beforehand. I would definitely change up my learning style in order to help me in 4th year, as opposed to just focusing on getting good grades for the first 3 years. I definitely wish I knew that vet school is so lacking in diversity beforehand. I didn't think it would be so much of an issue for me as it was. As far as cultural diversity, it is very, very, very poor in vet school, and I mean, that's pretty understandable. Not many other cultures apply to vet school. Growing up, anytime I said I wanted to be a veterinarian, there was always confusion. Everyone thought I was either going to be a doctor or engineer or something like that. So that is still extending into vet school right now. Definitely wish I knew to what extent that would affect me beforehand. I wish I knew that there weren't going to be any vegans or vegetarians in vet school. That took me by surprise and definitely affected my experience there. I think I went in hoping that everyone would be similar to me and it was going to be more that kind of community for me. So that was definitely a surprise to me that I wish I had known beforehand, because I think I got my hopes up a little bit. What is the most efficient way of learning all of the information they teach you in vet school? 4 years later, I am not entirely sure. I am still studying, I am still taking notes, I am still Googling information, looking at textbooks. There is just no way to memorize, retain it, and understand it all at once. I definitely think that repetition is key, and not repetition from note studying, but repetition in having cases that are similar to each other. So 4th year definitely helped a lot with that. When you finally start getting some clinical experience and you have cases that resemble each other, you're able to understand how a medicine works or how a disease process works, what you can expect a prognosis to be. I wish I could tell you there was a way to do that for your first 3 years and then have it be easy 4th year, but I mean, I did not figure that out. I think it's all part of the process. But for studying for school, for getting your first 3 years as efficiently done as possible, I would say take handwritten notes. It forces you to kind of not be mindless about the notes you're taking. Take breaks while studying. Don't try to study all at once. Keeping a calendar so that you know when your exams are, when you need to study, how much time you have to study for something. It does definitely help. And after the first few weeks, you definitely get the hang of it. I love your videos and your personality. Also, what are you specializing in? Veterinary medicine is different from medical school in the sense that in order to specialize, you have to match for a 1-year internship. And then once you finish that 1 year, then you again go and apply and match for a residency or specialization program. So I have matched for an internship. After I finish 1 year, I will decide whether or not I want to do a residency. I'm actually not sure yet, but if I were to do a residency or specialization, I think it would be emergency critical care. Just has been such an interest for the past 4 years and even longer when I talked about watching things like Animal Cops and this and that. I'm so interested in emergency, trauma, critical care, and taking care of the patient in the moment. I also think that that is why I like nonprofit medicine so much. I am actually doing my internship at a facility that does nonprofit emergency care. They do a lot of cruelty investigation. They send out teams for disaster relief. Whether or not I pursue that as a further specialization, I think that that's the field of interest that I'm always going to stay in. What type of animal have you done live surgery on? I have done surgery on dogs and cats. I have done my own surgery, so independent, just me. I've done spays and neuters on dogs and cats, especially in shelter environments. And then through clinical rotations, I have been scrubbed in on various different either abdominal surgeries or mass removals, enucleations, things like that. For the large animal portion of rotations, you can decide how many weeks you want to spend. I wanted to do the minimum, so it was 6 weeks minimum, and in that 6 weeks of working at the farm, I did scrub into a few horse orthopedic surgeries, a few horse abdominal surgeries, and then also a cow abdominal surgery. But again, those were more things that you scrub in and you kind of stand and watch. You get to feel things, but you don't really get to do anything. While for the small animal surgeries, I think I had a lot more independence and responsibilities. Do you ever feel like quitting at any point? That is something I've definitely joked around about a lot. I think every year I was like, is it too late to quit? But it was always a joke, and like I just said, I would actually, despite all of the downsides, I would do it again. So no, I don't think I would ever quit. I can't see myself having any other job or being interested in anything else in order to pursue an educational path following it. That being said, it is really hard, and I think that if you don't have that passion driving you, it is hard to stay on. Every year, so not just in my class, but the classes below me, every single year, handfuls of people drop out. They either decide to pursue a different career or they need more time off before they can get back into it. It happens because it is a lot. It's a lot at once. And if there's nothing more than just, wanting to get that degree to push you along, it's very hard. Do they give out full scholarships? Very rarely. I have heard that they do. I don't know if it's a full scholarship or a large sum, but there are definitely scholarships available. I never got a yearly or large sum scholarship, but I did apply for scholarships every year, and I would get small amounts. But I think there are scholarships for if you apply based on a specific interest. For example, I think something like lab animal, or I don't know, there are other things. They also differ by state, but there are certain fields that you can choose prior to even applying to vet school, and that does sometimes affect whether they'll give you a scholarship or not. And then once you're in school, you can apply for merit scholarship. So that just means that you need to have a certain GPA, you need to have letters of recommendations, you have to write a little personal statement and then apply for scholarships. But again, those are small sums of money. What kept you motivated throughout your vet journey? My motivation, I think, was always my end goal. There is very literally nothing else I want to do. And once I found my specific field of interest, again, that nonprofit, emergency, cruelty investigation, that kind of stuff, once I found that, that was like the fire burning under me to get me to keep going and push forward. Basically thought of it as I could not lose that opportunity, lose that chance to do something that I love. I didn't want to settle for anything less. Are there moms in your class? There actually are. Veterinary school, and I'm sure it's the same for other postgraduate degrees, not everyone applies right out of college. A lot of people take a few years off. Some people work other jobs and then realize they want to get into vet school or want to become a vet. So my class is filled with people of all different ages. In fact, I'm one of the youngest in my class. There are a handful of my age, and then just going up, there are so many different ages. So there are a few moms, people who worked other jobs and then came back to this. There are people who, applied a few times and then got in this time around. I can't speak for how hard it must have been to balance your school life with family life. I'm sure it was very, very difficult, but it's clear that people have done it and are continuing to do it. So don't ever let that be a hindrance if this is what you want to do. Was it hard to get used to euthanizing animals? This also is another touchy subject. It's a lot harder to get used to the idea before you are in there with the animal and you're seeing the reasons that it is being done. Euthanasia, I honestly think, is a wonderful tool that we have in order to end suffering, especially if it's inevitable suffering. It's not something that we take advantage of, and it's something that people choose very carefully. It's always hard. When you're there in the room with an animal, it's always hard. You also have to learn to keep your emotions in check because you have to be there for the client as well. I think it was hard for me in the beginning, and now I honestly see it's such a beautiful tool, and I don't even see it as upsetting anymore because I think it's a wonderful gift that we can give to animals. It's not that it ever gets any easier, it's that you become more understanding of it and accepting of it. The first euthanasia I ever saw was when I was working as an assistant in high school, I think. And I kept myself together in the room, but I ran out the door and I was just bawling because I was just not comprehending that second difference between life and death. That was very hard for me. I think in terms of the actual process of euthanasia, I don't think you ever get used to how hard it is to see it happen. And that's normal. I don't think you're ever supposed to get used to it. It would be weird if you got used to it and didn't feel anything when you were euthanizing. So, how did you find externships for fourth year clinicals? I did a lot of Googling. At that point, I knew that I wanted to find something that had to do with cruelty investigation. I knew the word forensics was of interest to me, so I was on Google every single day just typing in, things in the area popped up, things out of state popped up, and I just went ahead and emailed a whole bunch of people, and academic institutions and private institutions as well know that this happens, so they are very amenable to having students shadow them or work for them. The beautiful thing about vet school is that it's still a tight-knit field, so when you say, hey, I'm a vet student and I want to do this, a lot of people are likely to say, sure, come on, we'll teach you. I also did the RAVS summer spay and neuter programs, which do free spay and neuters for kind of underprivileged communities, and that got me a lot of connections in that shelter community that I was pretty much set on becoming a part of. So knowing those people, getting their emails, being able to talk to them and use them as mentors, they also suggested various different externships for me. So once you get into vet school and you start making connections in fields that you're interested in, whether it means Googling someone and emailing them out of the blue, or taking a volunteer trip or shadowing someone and then starting to get to know them, that's kind of the best ways to learn about various different opportunities there are out there. How does it feel to finally graduate? It is unreal. It hasn't hit me yet. I don't think it will hit me until I have a client actually say doctor. Right now it just feels like I'm on a little mini break. Graduation, I think today is gonna hit hard. I mean, getting a diploma, getting a hood, I think it's gonna be a wonderful experience, and just graduating with the rest of my class. 4 years seem to have flown by. I don't know where they went. I remember people telling me that it would go by fast, and I remember studying for 12 hours a day and thinking, wow, vet school's never gonna end, but here we are. I mean, I'm incredibly proud. It was hard, and I think I did a great job getting through it. It just hasn't hit me yet, so. Did you work part-time while going to school? Yes, I worked at a research colony within the school itself. It was part-time in the sense that it was very, very part-time. I only had to do like 2 hours in the morning every few days, not even every day. And then sometimes I had weekend duties, sometimes I had afternoon duties. So it really wasn't bad at all. It did not pay well at all. It was simply pocket money to get a lunch or, you know, coffee for a few days. But it gave me animal experience, which was great. It helped me with internship applications and rec letters and things like that. It's very hard to hold a longer job. I don't suggest doing it unless you're really tight on money and you can't take loans for any reason. It is very hard to balance a job with the amount that you have to study, especially the first 3 years. So that being said, I would suggest instead getting a job in the summer. I got a much higher paying job in the summers, and that definitely helped, you know, in terms of saving. It also helps with experience. For example, my vet school lets students work in certain specializations over the summer, so you can be in surgery as like a student worker, you can be working in the pharmacy, working radiology and things like that. So that gets you a lot of experience and, you know, a good amount of money for the summer, but it's really hard to try to balance a job while you're studying. What is your biggest tip getting into veterinary school? Grades. Grades number 1, some sort of animal experience number 2. Was it worth it at the end? Absolutely. I got into vet school not knowing where I was going to end up. I had a vague idea. I didn't know it existed to the extent that it does. You know, halfway through vet school, I found out about this organization that just does everything I love, and the fact that I'm here now going to work at that organization, it's a dream come true, so absolutely worth it at the end. Is paying out-of-state tuition really worth the debt? In a state that has a vet school, you should absolutely try to get into that vet school and pay in-state tuition. It makes a world of a difference. If that was an option for me, I would have definitely chosen that over going out of state. Unfortunately, New Jersey doesn't have any vet schools, so I didn't really have an option other than to go out of state. The debt hit hard, but it's still worth it, I think. But not worth it if you have the choice of going in-state. How is it to be a vet to study various animals, whereas human medicine in itself is complicated? Yeah, I don't know. It is incredibly difficult. I mean, from day one anatomy physiology, we were learning such intricate details about each species. It doesn't make sense to me how I have this knowledge base of various different animals. I would always compare it to medical school to like make myself feel better that like for human doctors, you only have to study one species. We have to study 4 or 5 minimum. And it truly amazes me that the doctors that I work with can tell you what the dosage is for a dog off the top of their head and know that there's a difference for a cat, or know, something is toxic for a cat while it's not for a dog. It amazes me that I'm able to do surgeries on dogs and cats, that I've been in surgeries with cows and horses. They really do a good job of training you. I don't know how it's possible to hold all of that information about all of these different species, but apparently it is. Again, I think it has to do with repetition. The more that you see one type of case with one type of animal and how it changes with another type of animal, the better you get with learning and understanding. But it's complicated. It is absolutely not easy. For the didactic portion of vet school, it is very frustrating to have to learn all of this information about one species and then the very next day have to learn the same information about a different species, but know that things are different. It's so easy to get confused. It's very frustrating to have to memorize all these different species, but I love bragging about it and I love comparing, so it gets easier once you get used to it. What was your favorite rotation in terms of practicing vet medicine? My absolute favorite rotation that wasn't my externship was emergency. I loved the fast-paced speed and variety of emergency, because every few minutes you have a new case comes in and something totally different. You have a limited amount of time to work it up, come up with a diagnosis, a plan of treatment, and then you kind of just move along to the next one. There were definitely people who didn't like it because they are more, I want to stay with that case, I want to find out what happens to it, I want to follow up weeks later. And those kind of people go into something like internal medicine or something like that, where you have like that constant connection with your patient and clients. But for me, there was such fulfillment and gratification of having something come in through emergency and you very literally save its life in a matter of minutes. I love that, and that's pretty much a huge part of what I'm going to be doing in the future, and it was easily my favorite rotation. Was it pass-fail or did you get actual grades? We got actual grades. I don't know if that's the best way to do it. There are some med schools that do pass-fail. I believe there are some vet schools that do pass-fail, but my personal school did grades. That made it very competitive, and oftentimes weird environment to be in when people get competitive, especially when you have like the best of the best as your classmates. And then also it puts this unnecessary stress on you. I think pass-fail would have been better, especially for first year when you are thrown into this new way of studying and so much information that is so different from college. I know a lot of schools don't have grades for clinical rotations where you're passing through rotations in the hospital. Our school also had grades for that, which also made it difficult because sometimes they graded you on your skills and your competencies when if that was your first time doing something, which is understandable because, you're a vet student, that would affect your grade, and I don't think that was very fair, but I do believe they might change that for the future and make it pass-fail. For me, the worst thing about grades is that you end up focusing too much on your grade, and you can easily sacrifice your quality of learning just in order to get a good grade. When I went into rotations, I told myself that I wouldn't care about the grades, and I think that helped me a lot because I ended up asking some really dumb questions and made it seem like I didn't know anything, but that helped me long term to really understand. Funnily enough, like, the grades were great. I did great despite asking questions like that, and I think that's because the professors see that you're willing to learn and you're trying to make it work in your head. What were your favorite, least favorite classes, and what were your favorite things about PennVet? I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to answer some of that. My least favorite class ever was reproduction. It was just so boring for me. It was very intricate. There were so many minute details that you had to memorize. We had to learn everything. So I'm talking cows, sheep, goats, camelids, dogs, cats, obviously, horses, things like knowing exactly how many days their estrous cycle is, exactly at how many days can you detect pregnancy, but knowing that the number is different for all of these 7 different species. It was so tedious. I had zero interest in it. I hated it. And then I had to restudy that information for the NAVLE, which is your national boards. It was horrible. How does it differ from other med schools? I mean, the medicine is the same. People actually find that very surprising, but you're practicing the same medicine. We have a cardiology service, oncology, dermatology, radiology. I think that the biggest difference is that you have more than one species, so it's a lot more information to learn. And then we also do a lot of zoonotic stuff. There's definitely a huge public health part of it. Our epidemiology course is huge, but it's very similar. We practice the same exact medicine. We follow the same exact protocols, just on animals and just more than one species. Were you always good at school? This question is funny because if the question is, did I always get good grades? Yes, because I know how to study to get good grades. I'm very good at memorizing. I will very honestly say that that does not translate into my memory knowledge. From the first 3 years of getting good grades on tests, I struggled once I hit rotations because I did not keep that information in my head, and I really had to learn everything again and again when I got into rotations. I just spent so much time memorizing information and then pushing it out in order to memorize information that for the next test that I didn't give much importance to retaining that knowledge. So 4th year, I spent a lot of reviewing notes on a case-based point of view, and that helped me more with memory retention, but that's still a struggle for me. If you asked me to memorize something today, I could do it easily and verbatim give it back to you. Memory retention long-term is a little bit harder, and that's still something I'm working on every single day. Okay, I am running out of time, so my makeup is done. I didn't want to put on lashes because for graduation it seems a little bit too much, so I just did mascara. I'm doing somewhat of a nude lip. I'm gonna be wearing a white dress, so I'm gonna go change, fix my hair a little bit, and then I will be back. And I am wearing this cute little diamond set that my parents gifted me. It also comes with this little bracelet. I had a lot of fun filming this video, answering your guys' questions. If I didn't get to your questions, please don't hesitate to ask it in the comments down below, and I will try to reply to as many as I can. I am so excited. I'm gonna be graduating today. I'm gonna be a doctor officially today, and I just wanna say a huge thank you to all of you guys because I started this channel first year of vet school, and you guys have been with me this whole ride, and it just means so much. You guys have given me so much love and support, and I'm really grateful. So thank you to you guys as well. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you guys in my next one.